I, Ogechi, if I ever had a hand in the death of the late Crown Prince, Prince Odinaka, let the gods strike me right now. But if I did not have anything to do with it, let me go scot-free and let the real culprit be punished, she said and dropped the staff. Everyone stood waiting for what will happen, but nothing happened. Everyone was as quiet as the cloud. The chief priest looked shocked, likewise every other person. So she's innocent. She did not kill Prince Odinaka. So she has been innocent all along. The villagers continued to murmur among themselves. They folded their hands and refused to believe that Ogechi was innocent. Some began to feel guilty for treating Ogechi badly in the past. Oh, how the poor girl has suffered so much. I said it. They continued to converse and slowly talk among themselves. The king and the queen, likewise the princesses, looked shocked. But why has the culprit not been punished? One of the villagers threw the question. Are you sure that she's really innocent? Why has the culprit not been punished yet? Another one threw the question at the chief priest. The king looked at the whole scenario confusingly and immediately turned to the chief priest for clarity as well. Eyes of the gods, please can you tell us what is happening here? If she's truly innocent, why hasn't the gods punished the culprit yet? The king asked. The chief priest looked at everyone and carried his staff. He started making some incantations that none of them could decipher. He sat down on the floor and spread the cowries on the ground. He continued to do the incantation while singing in a dialect none of them could interpret. After he was done, he stood up and turned to everyone. The gods are silent, he said, and the king looked at him confusedly. Eyes of the gods, why is the god silent? Please, can you tell us? We want to know. The chief priest made a very bitter face and looked at everyone. Everywhere is very dark. I can see darkness, only darkness. The gods have refused to see anything. There are only thick smoke everywhere. Everywhere, he said. At that point, the queen immediately made an angry face from where she stood. You see, I thought as much. The gods are silent, that's why she was not punished. My people of Umugadi, nobody should believe the wretched thing here on the ground. She's nothing but a big-time liar. I know that there is a big mistake somewhere. The gods can never be silent. No one should listen to anything she says. She's the one that killed my son. That's all I know. She thundered from where she stood. The king tried to hold her to be calm, but she immediately shoved her shoulder away from him. She walked up to Ogechi, to where Ogechi sat on the floor, and pointed her index finger at her. You, don't even play too much innocence here, because I know that you are the one that killed Odinaka. I know that you are the one that killed my son, and I am going to make sure that your evil is open to the whole village. And you will never go scot-free, she angrily said and finally stormed out of the scene. The chief priest looked at her from where he stood and started dancing and singing, making his usual incantations and leaving the palace without saying a word. The king thought, still looking confused, dismissed the whole villagers and everyone went home. All the royals walked back into the palace except Princess Melody, who immediately started walking slowly towards Ogechi sat. When she reached, she squat down and placed her hand on her shoulder. I am so happy for you. At least you were not punished or banished at all, she said with a smile, and Ogechi immediately released a smile and hugged her. I am so happy as well, my princess. But why were the gods silent? She couldn't help but ask. Oh, please, don't let that one bother you. Maybe the gods are silent because of your innocence. Maybe because you are so innocent to the fact that they cannot even open their mouth to talk, she explained, and Ogechi immediately smiled. After she was done, Princess Melody walked back into the palace and into her room. Immediately she entered her room, her face changed immediately. But how did that happen? Yes, I know that she did not kill the prince. But I thought I went to bribe the chief priest yesterday. So how comes he didn't do anything to make her guilty? she asked and sat down on her chair, looking into her mirror confusingly and angrily. In the queen's room, she was panting and endlessly walking through and fro. How? How did she go scot-free? How is she innocent? No, I don't want her to be innocent, no matter what. I don't want her to be innocent. She killed my son. She must be punished for it. Yes, she killed my son. I can't let her go just like that. She angrily scattered her hair and pushed everything that was on the bed to the floor away. Ogechi cannot escape. No, she cannot escape, she said, and immediately stood up and looked restless. That night, the queen sneaked out of the palace, but she was only able to do that by bribing the gateman and passing through the gates. She wore a long black gown covering herself from head to toe. She walked steadily and creepily until she reached a shrine that night in the neighboring village. When she reached the old tattered-looking shrine, the place was reeking of smell, of which the gods actually adorned. There was an old decoration as the place was constructed in a squarely way. The chief priest sat down on the floor making some incantations and speaking to the gods and back to himself. While doing that, the queen entered the sacred place and immediately started troubling her worries to him. Eyes of the gods, my name is Queen Ugoma from Umugadi Kingdom. I have a very big worry in my life right now. My son, Odinaka, the late crown prince of Mugadi Kingdom, died some weeks back and his wife killed him. But today, she was revealed to be innocent. My problem here is I do not want her to be innocent, even though she is. I want her to suffer instead because I do not like her. I want her to be the one that killed my son and not anyone else, she angrily said. And the chief priest looked at her and began to make some incantations to the gods and to sing to the gods. My queen, I have heard all that you have said, but wouldn't you want to hear at least who killed your son? At least that should be your first priority and nothing else, the chief priest asked her, and she immediately shook her head. Eyes of the gods, I do not care about who killed my son Odinaka. All I want is for Ogechi to be punished for it. One of your children killed your son, the chief priest said, cutting her in. The queen immediately looked up in surprise and back to the ground. At first, she was silent, then she spoke up. The more reason why you should make Ogechi the guilty one. My children cannot face the wrath of the gods. That will be a shameful thing to the royal palace, she said. And the chief priest nodded and began to make some kinds of incantation. He called Ogechi's name and making some incantation. After he was done, he looked up at the queen. My queen, it is done. Your problems and worries are over. Go. Tomorrow morning, your result is awaiting you, he said, and the queen immediately knelt down and thanked him so much, then left the place smiling happily. The following morning, when Ogechi woke up from sleep, she stood up from her bed and tried to walk out of her room. At that point, thunder immediately struck from the cloud and into the room, and she fell to the floor. The queen mother in her room, who was expectantly waiting, hearing the thunder blast so loudly, immediately ran out to Ogechi's room. The moment she saw Ogechi lying lifeless on the floor, she quickly let out a scream. I said it! I said it, oh, my people of Umugadi. I said it, she shouted as everyone immediately rushed to the scene in shock. The people in the palace let out a shocking face as they saw Ogechi lying on the floor with foam coming out from her mouth. Within few minutes, the news already spread like wildfire around the village. Every villager cursed at Ogechi and prayed that she suffer forever for killing their late prince Odinaka. Some even regretted ever believing her. I knew that the gods will never disappoint. He will always do justice for his people, they said. The king was enraged to have heard that Ogechi was really behind the death of Odinaka. He vowed to make her life miserable. The villagers gathered around the palace that particular day, under the very hot and scorching sun. Ogechi was in the middle with severe pain. Her stomach was already popped out a little. We want her banished from the kingdom. Yes, we want her banished. She killed our crown prince. She must be banished. They kept on yelling with rage as they pointed at Ogechi on the floor. The king mercilessly looked at the whole scenario and finally made his judgment. My son, Prince Odinaka, the late crown prince of this kingdom, was very nice and gentle prince, who only thought of nothing but for the good of the people. He was very resilient, humble, and the best prince ever, but you chose to kill him. You chose to take him away from us. For that reason, I, the current and the reigning king of Umugadi kingdom, hereby banishes you from this kingdom, he declared, and the villagers supported him. Ogechi could only sit down and cry with no one to help her. Her face was designed and soiled with death. Leave our village, we don't need you any longer. You are a curse to us, get out. They shouted in rage as they began throwing different things they could grab their hands at her. At that moment, there was a thunder and lightning, and immediately rain started falling heavily. Ogechi cried as she made her way out of the village. Ogechi's banishment from Umugadi spread like wildfire. The villagers wore a fulfilled and satisfied look on their faces. Immediately they heard that Ogechi had been banished from the kingdom. The chief priest, after hearing such a wild news, got really upset and bashed into the king's palace immediately. What have you all done? Do you know the level of calamity you have caused? My king, why didn't you summon me? The chief priest first, before making such a rash decision. He angrily asked the moment he saw the king and everyone present in the palace. I thought that was the right thing to do. I mean, she killed our late prince. There was a confirmation this morning when the thunder struck. She needed to be banished so that Umugadi will not have any stain and so that curse will not come upon us, the king explained. And the chief priest looked at them all and shook his head pitifully at them. Well, the curse has already come upon you all. What? They all exclaimed. How? How is that possible, eyes of the gods? What did we do wrong? The king asked. And the chief priest only looked at everyone, shook his head once again and walked out of the palace in silence. After Ogechi was banished from Umugadi kingdom, the land became calm again. In fact, calmer than before. Some began to say that it was Ogechi's presence in the village that made everywhere heavy and disorganized, with no peace. But now that she was gone, they were more fulfilled and happy as they moved on with their lifestyle like nothing had happened. One day, the queen called all her children to a sacred place for a brief meeting. They all wondered why their mother would call them. It's something she had never done before, even when they were very little. She had never for once asked them out for any sacred meeting. Then why now? They all wondered. That night, they all assembled in a secret place inside the palace. Which of you killed my son? She instantly threw the question at them immediately they had arrived. Which of you killed Odinaka, your brother? She asked, but all they could do was keep quiet and just look at her. Didn't you hear me? I said, which of you killed my son, Odinaka, your brother? She shouted, already angry with tears rolling down from her eyes. It's not me, oh, Prince Melody said. It's not me either, Princess Mirabel said. The queen turned to Prince Chibuzo, waiting for his own reply, but all he could do was to keep quiet and only look at them. I killed him, he finally said, with no remorse written on his face. What? The queen exclaimed unbelievably. You killed your own brother? How could you, Chibuzo? That was your brother, for God's sakes. The queen thundered, with so much anger written on her face. Who cares? I needed to be king, okay? And besides, Odinaka and I have never been on the same page, ever. Ever since we were born. And remember, you were the one that told us that we should always try with all we can to eliminate anything that tried to stand in our way. So I took the advice seriously and I did as I was told. By you, he explained, and the queen only looked at him unbelievably. Why are you so foolish? I said that when you all were small, and besides, I wasn't referring to family, I meant outsiders. Outsiders, not for you to eliminate family members, she said, and sat down, tapping her feet on the ground. Do you know the level and the length I had to go through in order to clean up this whole mess you've caused? She asked, But Prince Chibuzo only looked at her, still with no remorse written on his face. I still don't feel any empathy for killing Odinaka. He needed to die so that I can ascend the throne. He was never my family. I never took him as one, so don't call him that, he said angrily and walked out. The queen kept on looking at him as his figure disappeared unbelievably. When Princess Melody went back to her room, she sat down before her mirror and declared to herself, "So Chibuzo killed Odinaka," she said, wearing an unbelievable look on her face. Wow! She gradually let out a smile. "So he wants to be king?" she said, and immediately let out a laugh. "Well, I am so sorry, my dear, but I think you are going to join your brother Odinaka in the grief. I am the only one who can become king. Why must it always be a male alone to become king? I must also become king," she said as she brought out a bottle containing some poisonous substance and smiled at it. The following morning, the maids woke up as early as they could and began to do their usual house chores. When it was 8 a.m., one of the spas served Princess Chibuzo's food on the dining table and went to call him in his room. Immediately she left, a secret door cracked open and Princess Melody slowly and steadily tiptoed out of the room. She made her way to where the food was, opened it and brought the bottled substance from her dress and emptied it inside. "After eating this food, you will die, Chibuzo. I am the only one who can become king, no one else. Go and join your brother in the grave," she said, and immediately ran out of the place, back to her room. When she reached, she swelled happily and fell on her bed, looking fulfilled. On the other hand, Chibuzo finally came out of his room, looking energized to eat. He sat down, washed his hand, opened the food and started eating happily. While eating it, he started feeling uncomfortable somewhere around his stomach. He would gulp a glass of water that was there and continued eating, ignoring it. At a point, the uncomfortability converted to severe pain that he couldn't endure any longer. He immediately let out a scream, holding his stomach. "My stomach!" he screamed again. The pain was so severe that all over his stomach was aching really bad. He felt as if his whole intestines wanted to come out at that point. He suddenly fell to the ground. He screamed again. That was when everyone heard his voice and they all immediately ran to the scene. But before then, he was already vomiting blood. The king and the queen screamed in fright, looking at the horrible scene in front of them. Princess Melody and Princess Mirabel also ran out of their rooms and were also looking shocked as well. "What happened to my son? Chi, wake up," the queen called, already crying and shaking his body for him to wake up. "Quickly, guards, call the royal ambulance," the king ordered immediately in rage. The guards did as they were told, and within few minutes the royal ambulance arrived, and Prince Chibuzo was immediately carried away and driven away in the ambulance. Nobody could move an inch as their heartbeat increased, thinking of the worst that would happen to Prince Chibuzo. The queen fell on the ground, crying so hard. The king panted through and fro restlessly. "Oh gods of our land, why all this torture? First it was my first son Odinaka, and now it's my second son Chibuzo. What wrong did I do to deserve all this torture?" he cried out in pain, kneeling down and looking up in the sky. At that point, some villagers ran into the palace, carrying their lifeless-looking loved ones, and crying so hard, "My king, my only son is dead. My king, my wife was bitten by a snake today when she went to the farm. My king, my only brother was found dead on his way to the stream today." They all cried out and relaying all their problems to the king at the same time. The king was so confused as he looked at all of them at the same time. He couldn't understand what was happening at that point. "Gods of our land, what is happening? Nothing of this has ever happened before. Why all this now?" he cried out in agony as he fell on his knees, looking up to the sky. Once again, with so much pain in his visible eyes. The village was turned into a ramble. First, that everyone was filled with nothing but agony and pain. The people of Umugadi began to die endlessly. The children, babies, pregnant women began to lose their lives to the hands of death. Husbands lost their wives. Likewise, the wives. The pain of losing a loved one is incomparable to any other. The palace had been thrown into a stormy and distraught situation. Ever since Prince Chibuzo was poisoned and taken to the hospital, there have been no tranquility or calmness. The whole palace had been placed in chaos, provoking restlessness, anxiety, and nervousness. There have been tears, unbelievable tears from different corners. The fate of the supposed soon-to-be crown prince lied only in the hands of the gods. That day, everybody were in their rooms when the royal doctor walked into the room with the same atmosphere and same gloominess the day Odinaka had died. The queen looked at him with her heart beating and drumming as fast as it could. "Doctor, what is it? What of my son Chibuzo?" she asked, standing up to meet the doctor. The king looked at him as well, expecting the same answer from him, likewise the rest of the people around. The doctor only shook his head and sighed sadly. "I'm sorry, my king, my queen. Prince Chibuzo is no more," he slowly said, and they all froze, looking at him. "I'm really sorry, everyone. He died out of food poisoning, and he was already far gone before he was rushed to the hospital. The poisonous substance had already eaten half of his intestines, therefore rendering him cold and dead," he explained, and the queen immediately succumbed to the ground, crying so hard. "Chibuzo!" she screamed, clutching her hands together on the ground. At that moment, Princess Melody began to cry so loudly. "Ah, why, gods of our land? Why, first it was Odinaka, now it's Chibuzo, my one and only remaining brother. Che! Whoever wanted both of them dead shall never have peace in this life. Nothing good shall come out of them. I'll make sure that I finish out that person and kill them as well." "Oh," she continued to rant in tears. Princess Mirabel only looked at her and walked out of the place. "Someone should kill me. Oh. Let me just die. Let me just die and follow them now. Why am I still living? The gods of our land, please take my life too away." Oh. The queen continued to lament and cry. The king bitterly shook his head, trying to hold his tears, but suddenly walked out of. Princess Mirabel walked into the room of Princess Melody without knocking. She looked at her with so much hatred and unbelief on her face. "How could you?" She threw the question at her, rendering her speechless and confused. "How could I what? What did I do?" she asked. "Oh, please stop playing innocent here. I know you killed Prince Chibuzo. I saw you when you tiptoed to put the poisonous substance in his food. But I never thought it could be a poisonous substance until now, when it was announced by the doctor," Princess Mirabel said, and Princess Melody had already froze a long time ago, looking at her talk. "Why would you do that? Why would you kill him? What wrong did he ever do to you?" she asked, and Princess Melody looked at her for a long time before she spoke up. "Oh, please, spare me with all those trash. Stop acting innocent here too, as if you are any better. You think I did not know that you also wanted to kill Odinaka?" she said, and Princess Melody's face immediately grew wide in shock. "Yes, I overheard you when you were talking to someone on the phone. You hated Odinaka just because he had sided with Ogechi, not you, and had gone ahead to marry her," she said, and Princess Mirabel chuckled. "At least I had a very good reason for wanting to kill him, and besides, I wasn't the one who later killed him. Chibuzo did the work, so that means I'm safe. But you are far gone if this goes out," she threatened, and tried to walk off the room, but Princess Melody immediately dragged her hair back. "So you think you are wise, ba? I will kill you today," she said, and they immediately started fighting. The fight was so hot and intense as they dragged each other's hair, biting their skin, clapping and throwing punches at each other. At some point, Princess Melody got the upper hand with her palm wrapped around Princess Mirabel's neck, trying to strangle her. "I will kill you today. I will make sure you join your brother in the grave today," she said. Princess Mirabel was already looking weak, coughing and struggling for air when she sighted a knife from afar. She immediately stretched her hands and grabbed it and threw stabbing punches at Princess Melody. But she dodged and opened her wardrobe, dragging her own knife as well. "You think you are wise, right? I am going to kill you," she angrily screamed. advancing towards where she had stood, but they both sighted the knife into each other's stomach at the same time, and they both slowly fell to the ground, with their blood spilling all over the floor. The death of two princesses were like wildfire drained on a cold stone. The shocking news spread round the whole village like a wildfire. It was so scary and eerie that fear gripped a lot of people. Lots of people were already scared of their lives, that they already planned on running away from the village. The queen had been torn apart ever since she discovered that her two daughters were no more. That particular day, she had barged into Princess Melody's room, only to behold the shocking and bloody sight in front of her. Her two pretty daughters, whom she had nurtured and raised right from childhood, were lying down on the floor in cold blood. Their eyes were bulged out of its skull, with their hands still placed on each other's stomach, holding the bloody knife. The queen let out a scream that attracted the presence of everyone in the palace. The next thing, she collapsed on the floor and fell unconscious. The king was surprised and couldn't believe his eyes. His mantle immediately fell from his hand as his legs were rendered totally feeble. He fell to the floor as well, unable to voice out nor shout. He slowly wiped out his pain on the floor. The burden was just too much for him. Everything was getting worse rather than getting any better. He had lost all his children. What did he ever do wrong? What crime did he ever commit? He wept out loud. The guards and the maid around there stood staring at him in pity. That was the first time they could be seeing the king in so much pain. This time around, it was so different than the rest. He just looked so pitiful and really weak. The royal family has been untimely crushed within a twinkle of an eye. The one blossoming and happy family was now torn apart and thrown into an abominable catastrophe. What do you think is the cause of all these atrocities? What is the solution to all these atrocities? Please like, share and subscribe, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy our video while we get ready for the next episode. Thank you.